You're part of the tech vanguard. You are not just keeping pace with change, you are driving it, and that is why we are all here. Probably, and then they'll move over to the podium for the rest of this. And speaking of driving change, let's give a massive round of applause to our incredible speakers. They've traveled from across the globe to share their wisdom, their expertise, blah, blah, blah. See, and then these ones, are these ones on? No. Not currently, but okay.
With a microphone, you are dynamic. You can be here, you can be here.
Exactly. I was just kind of like thinking about where I can do a transition.
Everybody's job.
Everybody's job.
Quite my tempo.
Am I rushing or am I dragging? Am I rushing?
So you do know the difference.
Okay. Whatever. I get results. I get results. You know what I should have brought this year? I should have brought cards.
Okay.
About ready to go for in 5?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Doors in 5.
Doors in 5. Doors in 5, thank you.
There's a big door down, yes.
Doors in 5, heard. I should have brought some note cards.
Note cards?
Did you get this in email?
No.
No.
If I had, I would have given it to you.
Okay, it's okay.
Or if I have, I haven't seen it.
Okay.
But
No, it's all good. Do. And that's why we are all here.
thank you again for reminding me about the UFO. I completely forgot it existed.
No,
And then I was going to be relying on the Toomey, which has a blown fuse right now.
yeah, it would have been high stress. And I'm all about less stress. Less stress. Gids was born from a simple idea to give developers in the Asia-Pacific region a world-class platform to sharpen their skills, meet peers, and learn from global experts, all brought together in Bengaluru. It's evolved into something truly special. Gids blends the big-name talks with highly practical sessions that deliver immediate, usable takeaways. All this in a setting that feels like a reunion of the sharp and the curious. Yeah, and then I can just flip. This year, our theme is Empowering the Tech Vanguard. It's about spotlighting the technologies, the practice, and the people leading to the next wave of digital innovation. It's about recognizing it's about recognizing that you are the ones at the forefront, pioneering new solutions and shaping what's new in technology. Lean in, connect to the theme, mention tangible benefit impact. 60 seconds? You got it.
Check, 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 check.
Selvam, second mic.
Good morning, everyone. A huge welcome to Gids 2025. Thank you all for being here. I'm so excited to kick off the 18th annual edition of the Great International Developers Summit. 18 years. Think about what the tech landscape looked like back in 2008. Smartphones were just hitting their stride. Cloud computing was a distant promise, and AI was mostly science fiction. And now look at us. Look at what everybody in this room has been building. Look at what you are all accomplishing. Whether you are a seasoned architect, a front-end wizard, a data whisperer, or just starting your journey, you are part of the tech vanguard. Give yourselves all a round of applause. You are not just keeping pace with change, you are driving it, and that is why you are all here. And speaking of driving change, let's give our massive round of applause for our incredible speakers. They travel from across the globe to share their wisdom, their expertise, and their passion with all of us. They're wizards who can help make us make sense of this changing landscape, and without Gids, that wouldn't be possible. So our speakers from everywhere, thank you. Thank you so much for providing your wisdom, your insight, your knowledge, and also your time and energy and experience. We appreciate you all. Gids was born out of a simple idea: to give developers in the Asia-Pacific region a world-class platform to sharpen their skills, meet peers, and learn from global experts, all brought together in Bengaluru. It's evolved into something incredibly, truly special. Gids is a blend of high-name talks and practical sessions that deliver immediate, usable takeaways in a setting that feels more like a reunion of the sharp and the curious. This year, the theme is empowering the tech vanguard. That is you. It's all about spotlighting the technologies, practice, and people that are leading the wave of digital innovation. It's about recognizing that you are the ones at the forefront, pioneering new solutions and shaping what's new in technology. And let's be honest, the future is bright. Yes, there are challenges. There's a lot of them. There's a lot of them. But you will leave this summit with practical knowledge, inspiration, connections that will help you navigate this exponential time with confidence. Over the next few days, you'll have hard-earned lessons about engineering improvement, scaling, deploying, transitioning new technologies, growing as team leads, and balancing craft with velocity. You'll meet with world-class engineers, researchers, authors, architects, and product leaders. You'll learn about real-world innovation, what's working, what's changing, and what's just around the corner. Of course, absolutely none of this would be possible without the support of our incredible sponsors. I'd like to say a huge thank you for our 37 partners, including our platinum sponsors: Lloyd's Technology Center, Atlassian, Target India, Zoho, Work in Finland, New Relic, Google Cloud, Twilio, Toast. Our gold sponsors: Apprise, Tesco Technologies, Neo4j, OpenText, Wells Fargo, Eppin Systems, Snowflake, Redis, AWS, and our silver sponsors: ZenCoder, ImageKit, Tide, ThoughtWorks, Goldman Sachs, Couchbase, Arcasium, 7-Eleven Global Solutions Center, Delta Tech Hub, Okta, Amadeus, and our bronze sponsors: Pega, Walmart Global Tech, Canini, and our state partner, K-Tech. Please take some time to visit our partners in the Expo Hall and learn about the cutting-edge solutions that they are building. And thank you again to all of our sponsors. Let's give them a round of applause. All right, just some quick housekeeping. So what's in store for you today? We are kicking things off with inspiring keynotes that are right here in this hall. Then, after the coffee break to recharge, we'll dive into parallel sessions across 5 different halls. Those are all subsequent. They're all happening at the same time. We've allocated a 10-minute break between sessions so you can move between the halls easily. Please be mindful that these transition times to ensure that all sessions can start promptly. As you map out your day, remember to return to this hall for the evening's grand finale at 5:40 p.m. We'll be hosting a panel discussion about real-world changing triumphs of AI engineering. So make sure that you grab a seat in this hall by 5:40 p.m. and be ready with all of your questions. So, let's begin. Let curiosity lead, ask questions, make those new connections, and give yourself permission to fully be here. And let's see what we can spark. Everybody, welcome once again. I would like to make a very special introduction to a person who is very, very special to me. Standing firmly at the intersection between magic and technology, because as we all know, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. He is also the new author of Mastering Software Architecture. His brand new book, we have copies available. I've also heard that there might be a little giveaway. Plug, 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 shameless plug. Everybody, please join me in welcoming somebody very special, my magician, Michael Carducci.
Good morning, everybody. Oh my goodness. You have no idea how delighted I am to return here to Bengaluru to be with you. And I was talking to the incredible staff that makes this event possible, makes this event run so smoothly. Before we say anything else, how about a round of applause for all of the people who work so hard to make this event possible? And I cannot wait to dive in to today's program. I will never forget that fateful day, November 2022, 2023. I don't know at this point, the years are all blurring together for me. But that was when ChatGPT rocketed into the collective conscious. And we saw possibilities with software that seemed like science fiction, but they're today's reality. And as we navigate this space, there are so many questions, so many voices, so many opinions. How many times have you heard that we are now on the cusp of something new? Artificial general intelligence, people have been telling this story. How many times have you heard people say, this is a fad? How do we make sense of all of these different opinions, all of these different voices talking about our future? I want to remind you, our future is the future that we create. And it's the future that we're going to create together. And this is why I am so happy to be here with you, because I believe we are truly the army at the vanguard. We are the ones creating the future. One of my favorite quotes from a brilliant man, R. Buckminster Fuller, he said these words: "We are called to be architects of the future, not its victims." But how do we navigate this space? The answer is simple. We have brilliant minds leading the charge into the future, including Mr. Mark Richards there, Scott Davis, Dano Hinojosa, and of course, my very good friend, Dr. Venkat Subramaniam. Now, I'm curious, of everybody here, how many of you have had the privilege, the joy of hearing Dr. Venkat Subramaniam speak? Yes. And how about, raise your hand if this is your first time meeting the man himself. Oh, I am so excited for you. I am so excited for you. I've been so fortunate to call this man a friend now for 15 years. And I have been privileged to get a glimpse of the keynote you're about to see, because there is excitement with AI. There is opportunity with AI. There are challenges. And the organizations adopting AI need our leadership to guide this technology and steward it in a way that is going to bring real measurable value for yourselves, for the organizations that we all work with, and for humanity itself. So, whatever it is you think, whatever it is you believe, whatever it is the voices in the world have been telling you about AI, to quote this man himself, it AI ain't. Did I get that right? I'm not quite sure the right way to say that. It AI ain't. We'll figure it out. He'll say it the right way here momentarily. But whatever it is, it ain't what you think. So sit back, relax, and let the knowledge flow and the conversations flow in both directions, and the ideas percolate in this room and in this incredible community. My friends, please join me in giving a warm welcome to our opening keynote speaker, Dr. Venkat Subramaniam.
Thank you, Michael. All right. Well, before I get started, I want to just spend just a couple of minutes. A lot of times, I'm the loud voice. I speak, you hear me often, but there are these quiet voices that actually make things happen behind the scenes. So I want to just spend a minute to express how grateful I am. Is Dilip here? Dilip, if you can stand. Indu, if you can stand. Those are the two people who make this happen. Thank you. Thank you so much. They, along with the crew, put an incredible show. I've been very fortunate and thankful for them. I've been here 17 out of 18 years, the show has been, so it's been an incredible journey. But I want to first of all take the time to thank you, because you are here this early, which is really hard for just about anybody, but you took the time to join us here because you are curious, you want to learn. So I want to start with the wise words of Gandhi: live as if you were to die tomorrow. But to me, the most interesting part here is learn as if you were to live forever. And people ask me, what do you do? And the way I describe what I do is I say, I'm the kid in the candy store. Because I can't tell you how eager I am to wake up every morning, because I'm curious what I'm going to discover, what I'm going to learn. And it's a very humbling experience, because I once put on social media saying, I wake up every morning thinking I know everything I need to know, and I go to bed thinking I have no clue what I'm doing. And that's a journey of life, and I think this is beautiful to be in such a field, because you're never, you're physically old as you age, but mentally I think you can be as much a child as you want to be, because there's so much to learn. But the other aspect of what we do, and I'm sure this is on our mind every single day, is I want to channel in Franklin Roosevelt's words: the only thing we have to fear is the fear itself. So we all have to emotionally deal with our lives and to take in the courage. And that's what I want to do today, is talk about how can we handle some of those thoughts we have in our minds. But I think we can all agree to one thing, that it's really, really hard to accept new things, different things, accept change in our lives, in whatever form the change may actually come. And for that, I want to bring the words of Aristotle. And he said, it's a mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it. And that's exactly what I want you to do today. You don't have to accept anything. Not in my talk, not in anything you hear. But all I ask you is entertain those thoughts. Just let those flow in. and then analyze it and take your time in a non-threatening way as to how you can deal with it for a greater good. And that's what I want to focus on today. So let me ask you this question, a raise of hand. Who has fascination for AI? So most of us, right? Awesome. The next question, who fears AI? Who does both? And who will not raise their hand no matter what I ask? There's Scott always there, right? So this is the beauty of where we live in. It's fascinating and fearful at the same time. And that is the world we live in today. It's something that draws us and pushes us away at exactly the same time. And this roller coaster we live in these days. But I want to bring in the words of Arthur Clarke back from the 1960s. And he said a few things I think we can really consider, because sometimes people have vision. They know to look ahead, far ahead. And then we get to really get a sense of what they had in mind sometimes decades later. And Arthur Clarke said, he calls it Clarke's Law. He says, when a distinguished but elderly scientist states that something is possible, he almost certainly right. Then he says, when he states that something is impossible, he's very probably wrong. And I think this second part is one I want to remind ourselves a lot. Because old guys like me will tell you, that's not possible. That's not going to happen. Just keep that in mind. Most likely we are wrong. The second thing he says is the only way to discover the limits of possible is to venture a little past them into the impossible. So when people tell me, I want to try something, I always say, go ahead and try it. Because when you try things, you always win. Either you prove it or you disprove it. What is there to lose? So never ever hesitate to try things. And go ahead and try it. There's nothing to lose after all. There's always to gain. You either gain the experience or you gain on the results. And of course, he said, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. But to me, the first 2 points are incredibly valuable for us to think about. But the question is AI revolutionary or is it evolutionary? Because we talk about it a lot right now, and we're saying, oh my gosh, look at what AI is doing. And is it evolutionary, or is it really revolutionary that is changing the world right now? And to go back to think about it, way back in the 1950s, Alan Turing is one of the beginners in this area. And he was asking the question, can machines think? And he just didn't ask the question. He went on to do a lot of research. And as you know, this is called the Turing test. And he said a computer could be said to think if a human interrogator could not tell it apart through conversation from a human being. Now, I know, you're probably thinking, right? Sometimes you talk to people and you wonder if they are machines actually. This is the opposite. He is wondering if machines would simulate humans, not the other one. That we find too often, right? People running around like robots. But are we to the point where maybe it's indistinguishable between a machine and a human? Are we there? Are we there yet? And John McCarthy is one of the people who's known to have coined the term artificial intelligence. So even before his times, this has been thought about, but he gave a name to it. And of course, AI has been around for several decades. I often say, in our field, we don't have anything new. We just give a new name for things and get excited about it all over again. This time, we didn't even bother to give a new name to it, and we're still excited about it. And excitement is great. I love being excited because we keep moving the boundaries one step at a time. But thousands and thousands of people have worked on AI since, including Jeffrey Hinton, who won the Nobel Prize in 2024 for his work in the related area. So this is not something that's entirely new in the sense of, oh my gosh, look at what we have today. Sure, but it's been there for a while and developing over time. So I'm going to say almost every revolution is an evolution for humans. Nothing is really revolutionary in that sense because it often takes decades, if not centuries, to gain traction. Oh, talking about gaining traction, let's talk about history for just a few minutes. As it turns out, steam engines took centuries of evolution and perfection. And back in the 1800s and at times when steam engines were popularizing the way that we would use these power, but it's not new. It's been around for a long time, and they had been trying to make it better over and over and over. So it was revolutionary, but it actually was evolutionary as well. But as it turns out, there are other things we can learn from as well. And I think this is probably what comes close to us. There was a time when humans traveled on these carriages that were driven by horses or maybe bullock carriages. How many of you in this room had actually traveled on one of those horse or bullock carriages in their lives? A few of us, right? That's how I went to my village as a child. There was no other way to get to the village. There was no cars. There was no other transportation. Either you walked or you sat on that very scratchy, I can even remember that day, right? Some of you remember it. You're sitting on that like, Mom, this is scratching so bad. Because they have all their hay and a little blanket on it and you sit on top of it. I mean, I'm just almost tearing right now thinking of those wonderful days when I went to my village to see my grandparents. That's how you traveled back in time. In different parts of the world, this was true. But having said that, of course, automobiles were introduced in early 1900s, actually end of 1800s to early 1900s. But as it turns out, we say, oh, there were horse carriages, oh, there were cars. But did you know there was a good 25 years when both of them actually shared the road? There was times when horses would be riding and cars would be going next to them. And that was 25 years. It's not like horses were stopped on April the 2nd and cars started on April the 3rd. There was 25 years they shared the roads. And you may wonder, why? Well, first of all, why can't we just be happy with horses? The first thing is, you know that? Who wants to be the person cleaning behind the horses? You talk about pollution today. That was a different kind of pollution back in time, right? They caused disease. They were smelly. They had to be cleaned up. And the horses die on the road. I don't think you can call AAA and say, my horse is dead. Can you come and help me out here? Maybe they had a different AAA back then. So horses had their own problem. But more important, if you owned a horse carriage, your cost was $700 per year to maintain. Can you imagine what $700 in 1890 was? That's like, I'm exaggerating a bit, that's like spending $10,000 on maintenance. Cars cost you $35 per year. So there was a reason. Cars did not have to be cleaned up behind. They didn't smell. And they were costing less. So why didn't people just switch? Because they didn't work. They were hallucinating in their own way. They were not reliable. They were breaking too often. And people were not like, yeah, the horse at least works when it does, but who knows what this car is going to do. So for 25 years, they were sharing the road because people were not really fully convinced that automobiles, even though they are less expensive, are reliable at. And once automobiles became reliable, they took off. and carriages disappeared after that in most of the modern societies after that. But this is the funny part. In every junction in history, there are three groups of people. The first group of people who live before a change happens. These were the people who lived and died in the time of horse carriages. They never knew of automobiles. This never affected them. The second group, the kids born today, you tell them you were on a horse once upon a time, they're like, really? They have no clue that humans actually did that, right? And it doesn't affect them at all. But this third group, you know whom I'm talking about, right? The one in the middle, who are like, horses? Automobiles. What should I do? Should I continue my horses? Should I learn driving? It's the people in the middle that always have problems. We are in the middle. That's why the room is filled up. Because if this was 20 years ago, you're like, AI, who cares? 20 years from now, what do you mean we have to talk about AI? That's way of life. But today, we're not sure. Should I code the way I do? Or should I co-pilot it? We're not sure, isn't it? That middle is the problem always, because it's our life. So I went back to ask the question, what did people do back then? Did they continue to drive horses? Or did they continue, jump onto an automobile? I'm curious. And there are people in this room who are old, like me. There are people in this room who are young, who are in their 20s as well. The advice is not the same to both groups. I have to speak to both the crowds and everybody in between, not to leave out those 40s and 35-somethings. And we have to ask the question, how do we deal with this? And as it turns out, these old guys who were driving the horses, they said, nah, I'm close to my retirement. I'm going to retire in 4 years. I don't need the stinking automobiles. I'm going to continue on my horse carriage. I'm happy doing that. And they decided to stay on the horse carriages. That's people like me. I'm close to retirement, unless I should have retired already, but that's a different story. But I'm close to retirement. And I can tell you, this is no big deal for me, because I've done my time. I can get through this with no problem at all. I can be on the horse carriage and just be fine. What about the 20-something? They said, forget those horses. We're going to jump onto these automobiles. We're going to learn driving. And something very interesting then happened. The guys who decided to stay with the horses, their salary went up. You know why? Because there were fewer people who were willing to drive the horses. So the old people in this room, your salary is going to go up most likely, because you know how to do things, and you will actually do things, and you'll deliver results, right? That's good. The young people in the room, the young people who jumped onto automobile, guess what happened to them? Their salary went up too. You know why? Because they're the only ones who know how to drive this automobile. So overall, both groups benefited. Who doesn't want that? And when you realize it, you're like, why am I worried about this stuff? I am great if I'm old, I'm great if I'm young, and I'm great if I'm anywhere in between. So go write the thing. Not a big deal, right? Absolutely. You heard the term, best thing since sliced bread. As it turns out, sliced bread wouldn't agree with you. Because as it turns out, that sliced bread actually took a very long time to be considered as a good thing. I know my friend Scott loves making bread. Oh, by the way, I made my first bread last week. It turned out as a pancake. That's a story for another day. I need to tell you about this, Scott. But, so essentially, when you are looking at a sliced bread, Otto invented the bread slicer about 30,000 years after humans invented bread. Now you know what the term breaking the bread. You break the bread so you can share it and eat it. That's what we did for 30,000 years. Until he's like, gosh, I'll give you a bread slicer. And he did. And it was invented in 1912. Imagine that, 1912. The blueprint and the prototype got burned down in a building. There goes my idea. So they had to start over again. But if you went to people back then and said, I got a sliced bread, they're like, never mind. Why? Because the word sliced bread was synonymous to tasteless bread. Why? Because when they sliced the bread, it opened up more surface area, which means it dried up very quickly. It lost its moisture. So when you eat the sliced bread, it was very tasteless. And people said, why would I want to eat that stupid thing? Look at this bread. Here, ooh, that's tasty. It's very moist inside because it's not been opened already. So imagine this. You thought you and I debug, right? Now they said, good, we have a slicer, but now let's find out how to keep the slicing. So now they're solving a completely different problem. That took them a decade or so. And they added chemicals and ingredients, non-toxic obviously, so that it can keep it moist. So now, of course, 80% of the bread, starting 1933, were sliced bread. But it didn't transition overnight like that. It takes time. So I'll ask the question, what is AI today? So that's one of the reasons I coined this talk as it ain't what you think, with the kind of pun intended with the AI in it. But what is AI really today? I would say, I want to know if AI is good, if AI is correct. But how do you know if AI is correct? Well, you can ask it to do something, you can verify. I can ask, AI, what can you tell me about Mark Richards? It will tell me, I can go to Mark and say, Mark, is this true? And he's probably going to say yes or no. But I have to still go ask him. I know a lot about Scott as well. I could ask, or Dano for that matter. But I said to myself, there's one way I can absolutely know if it is correct. What if I ask it about myself? I don't have to go ask anybody. I know about myself. So I said, hey, AI, what can you tell about Venkat Subramaniam? I was curious. What is it going to tell about me, right? And it said this. Venkat Subramaniam is an Indian-American academic. I didn't like it saying academic, but I'll ignore that for a minute. The rest of it is still valid. Okay, I'll go with that. So far, so good. And then it said, an author who specializes in intersection of technology and society. I'm like, thank you. He has written extensively on topics such as, that's a lie. Have I written on AI? No. When I read, he has written extensively, I'm like, of course, yes. I'm into my 16th book. You can call it extensively, maybe. And then I'm like, what? And it's even worse, people. It's narcissistic. It says, you wrote about me. How cruel that is. Now I'm like, not sure what I hear from AI anymore. If it's what tells me about me, right? And I'm like, where's my AI book? So it's alternative information. That's what AI is. So when you ask information from AI, is it information or is it an alternative information? You have to go back and say, let me check to see if it's true, actually. I was on a flight. I fly every week. And I was on a flight. And while I was on a flight, I had to rebook another flight. And so what do you do when you're on a flight and you desperately have to do it? So I went to the chat on United Airlines. And the minute I opened the chat box, it said this. I'll read the last paragraph. Please note, some answers may be AI generated based on content from United.com. They may not always be complete or relevant. Think about that for a minute. If you produce an application and you tell your users, programmers wrote this code, we don't know if it's going to work or not. We know that's the fact, though. But would you say it, right? Would you say it? So AI is arbitrarily inconsistent. That's what AI is. It's not consistent at all, right? It does weird things. It does things and you're like, really? Air Canada decided to put AI into their application and said, look what we can do. Not a bad idea, right? But then a guy whose grandma passed away went to their website and said, I'm trying to get a last-minute flight for my grandma's funeral. And the ticket price is too expensive. What do I do? And AI said, well, sorry, that's your last-minute pricing. You want to travel at the last minute, your price is going to be high. But you have to understand, it's my grandma who passed away. I'm not going for pleasure. Can I take the trip and ask for a reimbursement so you can just give me the money back? And AI said, you know, if your grandma passed away, that's really sad. Sure, why not? He took a copy of it. And he finished the flight, went to the funeral, applied for refund. And Air Canada said, oh, no, we cannot do that. We cannot give you a refund for a flight you completed. And he took them to court of law. And the court of law said, but your application said you will refund. And they said, but that's not us, that's AI. And they said, no, it's your application. They never understood the word encapsulation. It's your implementation details, dude. Why do I care, right? So if you use AI, you need to understand what you're doing. But it is good for anything at all then, right? Venkat, you've given us things that are utterly stupid. Is it good for anything? And I would say absolutely. Absolutely, there's one area where I find it to be absolutely useful. It's incredibly good to identify issues. This is one area where I am super convinced that AI is awesome. I'm going to take a code example for you just for a couple of minutes, and I'm going to ask you this question. Don't be put on a spot for a minute, but I'm going to ask you this question, right? So I'm going to ask you this question. What is, I'm going to make this bigger in a minute, wrong with this code, right? So I'm going to ask you. So here's my code. Can you look at this code, and are you able to tell me what's wrong with this code? If you're able to see what's wrong with this code. Anyone? Please. What was that? Mutation inside a stream. And that takes Rahul to say that. Many people cannot identify this problem. But it's even worse. When I ask programmers, how many people have seen a code like this to be written in their system? 90% of people raise their hand, which is scary. You're probably still thinking, what could be wrong in this code? I actually had a client reach out with a potential problem in their production system with this. So I'm going to go over here. I'm just picking one random thing here, Claude 3.7. Could you tell me what could possibly go wrong with this code? And I asked the question, and when I asked the question, oh, by the way, it kind of blinks just to pretend that it's actually thinking. And it says, your code is mostly correct. Isn't that what we always tell? It's mostly okay on my machine, right? But there is a subtle issue in using the Stream API, and then it goes back to tell you what the problem is. In parallel stream, this could lead to concurrent modification problems. It nails it. Consistently, when you give it a code, it tells you what's wrong with it. But you know what's so funny? When you ask it to write code, it writes code with all the problems it tells you that the code has. I take it and give it back to it, and I say, what's wrong with it? It gives you a list. I'm like, just like my programmers. John, you wrote this code. Uh-huh. Can we talk about what's wrong with it? Boom, here's wrong with it. Why'd you write it then? It's amazing. But it nails the problems really, really well in my mind. It's great. I took one more problem. This is the problem that we had in production in one of the systems we worked on. I'm not exaggerating this to you. One of our senior developers spent 3 weeks full time to debug this issue. And when he came to work, he said, I'm going to hurt somebody today, he said. Because what they had done is a code that had A+++, B plus C plus A minus minus plus C, something like that. And the documentation of the compiler clearly has the word says, the behavior of the compiler is unpredictable on such code. And yet somebody marvelously wrote that code. So I was curious. I fed that into AI and said, what's wrong with it? Boom, it nailed it right away. Pretty good, isn't it? So to me, this is one area I'm really eager to use AI. AI is awesome investigator. This is where I will tell you I'll put my money today because I get 100% consistent results back because it nails problems. I haven't seen a situation where it has not nailed it yet, which is nice. So I think it's a really awesome investigator. What about code generation? Should we use it to generate code? So I said, create a function in Java using functional style to compute the number of occurrences of each number in a list. Not a bad problem, right? But I want it to be in functional style. And guess what it did? It did that. I will pardon it for writing stupid comments, useless comments, right? But if you leave the comment aside, is that a good solution? What do you think? Thumbs up, thumbs down, somewhere in between? Come on, people, what do you think? Reasonable? We'll take it home? Yeah, seems like it, right? So it says, here's a stream of numbers. I'll call a collect on it. I'll group the values and count the values. I think it nailed it. Cool, I like it. So you say, ship it, right? So it's accelerated inference. That's what we need to keep in mind. It's really an accelerated inference. What does that mean? Write a function in Java using functional style, again, to return the most number of repeated letters in a string. Most number of repeated letter in a string. It created this gut feeling. Looks great or oh my gosh? What's your thought? Oh my gosh. If you don't know functional programming, you're going to say ship it. If you know functional programming, you are like, really? Are you serious? What does it do if you look at it? It says map to object, filter, map again, collect, and then stream again. And you're like, you may not know the answer, but you may know enough to say, that is not the answer. Would you agree? You're going to look at this and say, I have a feeling that this is not what we want to really use. But if you don't know, what are you going to do? You're like, cool. So it's also accelerated in inference. So how does this feel?
Blowing my mind.
Excuse me? But does your friend often do that?
Strange. We all right? backyard.
Hey, what was that?
Went forward in time to view alternate futures, to see all the possible outcomes of the coming conflict.
How many did you see?
14,605,000.
How many did we win?
One.
Well, in our case, the one we got was not good. That's exactly what it is doing. Not as cool as Doctor Strange, but it's looking at all the possible solutions, right? And it's like, ta-da! I found you one. And then you can decide whether you want to roll your eyes or not after that. And so with all these different options, it picks one. It's just inference. That's what it's doing. If you reject it, it picks the next one if there is one and tries to keep finding those solutions for you. And once you understand that's really an accelerated inference, you realize you got to keep asking it to infer again and again and again until it lands on something sensible. Because code to a problem is an optimization problem. There is no one code to solve a problem. It's among several solutions, and AI picks it up. So this is also accelerated inference. It does look complex. So if all you wanted was code, you got it. So when people tell me, look how awesome it is, I can generate code, I'm like, yep, keep on going, right? If that makes you happy. If you care about correctness, conciseness, quality of code, then you may or may not get it. And the problem is, you need to have the ability to say, that's actually good, or that's awful. So, I rewrote the code in the bottom. I'm not saying that's perfect, but definitely better than the one that AI generated for the problem, isn't it? Someone recently asked me, hey, you're a programmer. What do you think of AI? Will it take away your job? My first response is, I hope it does. But then I thought about it, right? This is a person, a stranger who doesn't know me at all, but heard that I'm a programmer, so wanted to ask me, hey, what do you think is going to take your job? And I was thinking, and I said, oh, I got an answer for you. And this is the answer I gave this person. When I ask AI to do something I am a novice at, I find it awesome. I'm like, wow, did you see that? When I ask AI to do something I'm an expert at, I find it awful. And I'm like, really? Seriously? You know, as an example, I travel around the world, so I was like, I like to say things to my colleagues in different parts of the country in the language that they speak in. So I would take an English phrase, convert it to Norwegian or Finnish or Polish. And I used to do this for a while. And I was quite happy with it because I didn't know any of these languages, right? And the translator was great. And for no good reason, one day, I took an English phrase and I asked it to convert it to my mother tongue. And I read it. I said, oh my gosh, I would never say such a thing. That's the last day I used the translator, honestly. They're like, why would anybody say this? And I had to apologize to all my Norwegian and Polish friends, like, sorry for using the translator, right? They're like, who's this moron, right? So that's the distinction when you don't have a clue versus when you know what you're doing. Keep in mind, AI is a tool. That's what it really is. AI is a tool. And the minute you understand it's a tool, you know who's in control when you have a tool. That's you. If you don't control the tool and you let the tool control you, bad things can happen. So, as a tool, leverage it, but don't put all your faith into it. And that is something we need to be very careful about. So I Googled and I said, tell me what people are thinking about generating code with AI. A lot of these are hyperbolic in my opinion. Using AI-generated code will make you a bad programmer. I don't agree with that. We are already bad programmers. Survey, AI tools or increasing the amount of bad code. The dark side of AI. You can keep reading about these, right? Scary thoughts. So one day I posted this on social media. Humans write bad code. I think we know that. AI trains on code written by humans. Humans complain that AI generated bad code. That's called karma, baby. All the time we wrote the code. It's payback time. There couldn't be a better way to learn about karma. Isn't that true? So that's why we see all this code generated and we are complaining endlessly. But the minute you realize where it came from, it's not that bad, isn't it? Looks familiar. Sad but true, right? Sad but true. The problem is not that they have not been trained enough. The problem is they've been trained on everything with no delineation on quality. You know, there's a country song I actually like, and the dad is talking about his son. You know the song, right? Dad is talking about his son, and the son suddenly uses a 4-letter word. And the dad says, "Oh my God, son, where'd you learn that from, to say such a 4-letter word?" And the son says, "Dad, I learned it from the best," and points back to the dad. So the AI certainly is not a child, but it's worse than the child. It learns only the bad things, maybe. So, what gives? Should we just not do anything, go home? But I want you to entertain this thought. I want you to entertain this thought. Because we often look at what we have, but sometimes we have to go beyond what we look at. We got to be able to see in the distance. I always wonder, what will programmers do 500 years from now? Or maybe today, even 50 years from now. Or maybe that's 5 years from now. Who knows, right? But I want to know that question. At least for now, use AI for ideas, not for solutions. This is something I emphasize a lot. Don't be in a rush. Don't say, "I can solve my problem using AI." Wrong idea, wrong thought. Use AI for ideas. What do? I sit with a room full of amazing people and I tell them, "Tell me, what do you have in mind? Tell me, what are your thoughts?" I'm not asking, "Give me a solution." No, I don't want to go to a solution immediately. I want to entertain 3 or 4 different thoughts and ideas and arrive at a solution based on pros and cons. Use AI for ideas. And this is where I find the most value. When I sit down with AI and say, "Tell me about this problem," I'm like, "Yeah, no, whoa, didn't think of that. Ooh, didn't think of that aspect. Oh, really? I didn't even know that exists." And I'm taking notes right now because it's feeding me ideas. Not all of them are good ideas, but that's what ideas are, right? They trigger those evaluation points in you. Solutions carry a larger burden than ideas. Accountability, reliability, correctness, maintainability. So if I solve your problem, I want to stand behind it. But ideas? No. I invite strange ideas, but not odd solutions. I'm not going to be willing to do that because I care about solutions I create. I cannot just rely on some whim to create it. But in the long term, I want you to shift gears for a minute. Not today, not tomorrow, maybe not even in the 5 years from now. But what if 10 years from now? What could be the possibility? Will this happen? I don't know. But will it be possible to happen? See? Confirmation. That's AI calling from the future. Did you take the call? Don't tell me you have a missed call. Okay. AI is a black swan. What is a black swan? A black swan is an event that you did not see come so forcefully, but it changes everything you do and the way you do it. There are good black swans and there are bad black swans. Good black swan. Google search. It completely changed the world, isn't it? Any search engines. Before search engines, you had to know the answer. After search engine, you had to know the questions. What a turn of event, right? You need to know how to ask questions. You didn't have to have all the answers. My children always are curious. They say, Dad, they always quietly ask me, what do you mean? There was no Google when you were a child. And how did you escape those dinosaurs, Dad? Right? They're very curious that they feel like world didn't exist before Google, right? And they're like, really? How did that happen? There are good black swans like Google, phones. We communicate so effectively. There are bad black swans, JavaScript. So essentially, there are things that happen around the world, right, all the time. You have to deal with those, right? And AI is a black swan. Don't ask me, is it good or bad? Don't know yet. But it's a black swan. Every single human endeavor has started with failures and missteps. I have proof for it. The bread I baked last week. So, have you ever, honestly, have you ever done anything in your life that worked the first time? Never, right? Never. That's what is exciting as well. If it worked the first time, you wouldn't be here. Well, life is boring. But you're there, like, I want to see why it doesn't work. And you want to take the challenge, right? Everything fails, missteps. Airplanes fell out of sky in the early days of aviation. I'm saying this with sadness even today, right? But we're still getting better at it. And I could argue that still, in spite of all the things, flying is much safer than even driving cars on the street. So, but we've gotten better at it over decades after decades, since the time of ancients trying to fly a kite and trying to find something heavier than air to getting airplanes up in the Wright brothers and so on. And now we complain about the airline food, right? Decades ago, we had healthy dose of suspicion about compilers. Nobody in the room would tell you, right? We don't need compilers. I'm going to write machine code. I don't think. Anybody? No. Okay. One person. Okay. So, software for early computers were primitive, productive for programmers to use high-level language, and programs written using high languages can be reused on different kinds of computers. This was people talking about what a compiler can do. This is before compilers were created, right? They were talking about how world will be when you have compilers. And between 1942 and 1945, they were creating a planned calculus, the first high-level language for computers. This was a very primitive form of compilers back in the 1940s. Very fascinating to see this, right? People were talking about this thing called a compiler, that maybe we should do this. And between 49 and 51, a high-level language and automatic translator was created, the first sign of what would eventually become a compiler. And the first autocode and compiler in the modern sense was created by Linney in 1952 at the University of Manchester. You can go back and look at the history of compilers. That'll be a nice way to think about where we were and how we came to today. We did not become more trusting of compilers with time. No, we didn't. Just give it some time, people will be happy with it. No, that's not the reason. Instead, compilers became more performant and reliable and earned our trust and improved our productivity. AI is not there yet, but can it be, is the question I want to ask. Is AI the compiler of the future. Just think about that for a little bit. Can AI be the compiler of the future? What would that mean if AI becomes the compiler of the future? Hold on tight to your chairs. Compilers don't rewrite machine code or bytecode. That's not what compilers do. What do compilers do? They dump it, they trash it, and they regenerate your bytecode and machine code. What if your programs become the machine code of tomorrow? People come to me and say, what if AI can read the code? Like, no, wrong thinking. Compilers don't read machine code. We need to rethink about what we are thinking. I don't want compilers, AI to read code to understand it. I want AI to trash the code. Think about this for a minute. Can you tell me the single most important thing in your business application? What is that? Accuracy. No, that's implementation detail from the business point of view. What was that? Data. Data. If compilers can throw away your bytecode and regenerate it, will we be able to discard the programs like we discard machine code and bytecode? What if we no longer care about the program like we don't care about the machine code? Do you go home and say, I'm very unhappy? Why? Because we destroyed the machine code that we had created, right? You don't even think of it. So, as Michael said, what's the most important thing in an application? It's the data. Data is the king. Data is your business. What is the next important thing? Thank you. Business requirements, specifications. If you are able to take your data and your business specification and generate your application code, which is equivalent to your machine code, and when the business requirement changes, what if you destroy your application entirely and regenerate your application? What will happen then? So rather than asking, can AI maintain the program? I don't care for it to maintain the program, like I don't care a compiler to maintain my machine code. So the question I want to ask is, as Henry Ford said, if I asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. When people come to me and say, AI will make programmers productive, I'm like, sorry, you are thinking wrong. You want faster programmers. Mind you, programmers are not horses. I am a programmer. I don't look like a horse. No, that's not the comparison I'm drawing. But what I'm drawing here is, what we really need is not faster programmers. Quit talking about programmer productivity. That's a foolish talk. I don't want that. What I want is business agility. And if you want truly business agility, we got to think differently. And I think that can happen. Will it? I don't know. As we have heard good statements, right? Peter Drucker said, the best way to predict the future is to create it. And that's what here you are for, to be able to create it. So AI is a black swan. That's what it really is. And one of my most favorite books is Who Moved My Cheese? It's a silly 90 pages book, or maybe even shorter than that. And it's a book in which there are 4 characters, 2 mice-like and 2 human-like, and they have had cheese all the time. They're enjoying cheese until one day their cheese station is emptied. There's no more cheese. And what do? when you don't have any more cheese? I'm hungry. And they go through this talking about what to do. The mice-like characters being, little silly things, run around, they're gone. But the human-like characters, him and Ha, are sitting and talking about, and Ha is like, you know what? We gotta go look for cheese. And Hem is like, I'm entitled for my cheese. It better be provided here. So every day I ask you the question, every day I ask myself the question, do I want to be Hem or do I want to be Ha? That's what I wake up every morning and I ask honestly, because I don't have anything entitled in my life. I've got to wake up every morning and fight my way. That's what I do. And you know why? Because I love that fight. That's what keeps me as a human, gives me a purpose to survive and succeed. So I'm not going to be that, person who sits there and says, I'm comfortable doing what I'm doing. Give me everything I do. Don't tell me to change. I'm like, heck, tell me that the world is burning down. I can go back and fix it now. I'm ready to do it. So to be able to ride that wave or to be swept away, it's a decision each one of us has to make every single day. That's a choice you have to make. That's a choice I have to make, because nothing is guaranteed in life. But that's a choice you can make. Darwin is often misquoted as saying, the fittest survives. No, he didn't. This is a misquote. Darwin did not say the fittest survive. He said, after all, right? Dinosaurs didn't survive. They were probably the most fittest, huge, giants. We'd only talk about them. They're not around. They didn't survive. Dinosaurs in our field may not survive it. I can be a dinosaur if I chose to. Or I can be old but not a dinosaur. That's a choice I have to make. And that's what everyone in this room has to make. Do you want to be the dinosaur? Or maybe something else? According to Darwin's Origin of Species, it's not the most intellectual of the species that survive. It is not the strongest that survive. But the species that survive is the one that is able best to adapt and adjust to the changing environment in which it finds itself. Carefully chosen words. You didn't ask for it. You found yourselves in it. That's the reality. You didn't wake up and say, bring this to me. You woke up and said, this is where I am. So the environment in which it finds itself, you have found yourselves in this environment now. This was not the concern for people who were programmers 20 years ago. They are retired or dead. This is not a concern for programmers 50 years from now. They will only read about us in history books. And they would say, did you know, once upon a time, people wrote code like this. But it's a problem for you. It's a problem for me. It's a problem for you a little bit more than a problem for me, because I'm retiring. Or so I think. No, but I'm not. My wife says, I will retire when I die. So I'm here in this battle as much as you are, because I ain't going to give up so easily. But that's a question we want to ask ourselves. We are in this environment. How are we going to adjust? How are we going to adapt? Is the question we have to choose. If your job is mostly typing code, that part of the job will disappear because you are a very highly paid typist. I don't think we need that. But if your job was mostly problem solving, decision making, inferring context, leveraging proper tools to accomplish those, then delivering results will be the further enriching moving forward. So skill up, don't fear up. If you ask me, if I can have critical thinking, if I can look at problems and find solutions for it, and I can solve these problems by leveraging tools that will help me to approach and solve those problems, then you are invaluable to your companies. You are invaluable to your teams. If you are able to evaluate solutions, evaluate ideas, if you're able to steer towards solutions using humans and AI, if you have the ability to have critical thinking. And this is one of the things I ask people. Don't just gloss over details. Spend time analyzing those details. Ask the question, what does this mean? Why should I consider this? What are the pros and cons? What are the consequences of using this solution? What are my benefits? Where am I going to pay? What is going to come and bite my back? If you are able to have critical thinking, ask those questions, you have nothing to worry about. You will do your work a bit differently, but you will have a lot of work to do. But if your job is, don't ask me to think, I just want to write code and go home, I would say just stay home. No need to come back in that case, because that's not going to be necessary, right? So my recommendation sincerely to you is skill up. Don't fear down, because the challenge is in front of us, and I think we can do it, and let's do it. Thank you so much.
Venkat Subramaniam, everybody, a good friend of mine and a man, and I do not say this lightly, who I see as a visionary. Now, what is a visionary? A visionary is more than what you know. Visionaries are defined how they think. And Venkat gave us a good blueprint on how to begin thinking, because with technology, with AI, we need to retain our place in the driver's seat. Because if we just hand everything over, particularly our critical thinking, to AI, then we're not in the driver's seat. We're in the trunk. We're in the boot. And it's driving us, and we don't know where that's going to take us. Now, we have many visionaries to hear from this morning. And the next one I'm very excited to hear from. This is Sirisha Voraganti. Yes. And she is a visionary. She is leading the Lloyd's Technology Center. She is transforming how we use technology in banking. And not just looking at what is, because visionaries ask the question, what could be? And that's what she's doing. And that's what you are being empowered to do here. It's not just what we know, it's how we think. And I love this line from the bio. She said, this evolution is not just about adopting cutting-edge technology. It's about rethinking banking itself. Empathy-led innovation is now at the core, ensuring that technology aligns with the holistic needs of customers rather than just optimizing legacy financial workflows. So, yes. Sirisha is leading the charge with over 30 years of experience, and I cannot wait to hear what she has to say. My friends, please join me in welcoming Sirisha to the stage.
Hey, good morning, all of you. A louder good morning. Yeah. And I was just thinking there, sitting and listening to Venkat, and I thought that's going to be an amazingly difficult act to follow. You were just super awesome. But that's a prof. And here I am, a boring executive of a bank. And many of you might believe it's one of the most boring industries. And here I am to talk about everything that we're doing in the banking sector, what we've done over the last many, many years, and what to really look forward to, and how technology is actually being used in every aspect of banking. As I just scan around the room, I see a lot of, very few Gen Xs, I guess, a lot of you Gen Zs perhaps, So you are very, very savvy and impatient, and I'm sure many of you have more than a couple of apps that you use for your financial or not just banking transactions, but any transaction that you want to do. So, what do we have? The topic that I'm going to talk about today is, next-gen technology in next-gen banking. And why is banking as an industry so important to all of us? The data actually speaks for itself, right? As you can see, and I'll talk through most of it. Banking and financial services actually holds about a fifth of global GDP. That's huge. About $7 trillion of currency is actually traded every day by banks. Of course, there is, as you can see, $190 trillion in terms of estimated global assets that this sector holds. 78% of the global population is actually having a bank account, and India, I think, definitely leads the forum with, with all the digital identity and everything that we've done here. 1 billion plus people still in the unbanked and the underbanked segments, and that's something that we're always looking at. Employs a huge chunk, about 7.5 plus million people employed in the global banking sector. And if you've heard AI and what happens to all the jobs, that's another conversation. And we keep talking about, are we going to be able to reduce the manpower that we have in the coming years? And that's a 2030 plan that, executives lay out in boardrooms, I guess, and we come back to this community and say, how do we solve for that, right? The next one is super interesting. In terms of data, just the customer data that this particular segment holds is 149 zettabytes. For those of you that know what a zettabyte is, 1 zettabyte is equal to 1 billion terabytes. And what does this actually tell us? And I'm told a trip to the moon and back is about 691 terabytes. So you can just imagine how many trips to the moon and back we can actually do with the amount of data a bank holds, right? And if you look at innovation in this particular segment, and banking is not just consumer banking that all of us see, right? There's a lot around investment banking. There's a lot around managing volatility in the financial markets, a lot to do with venture capitalists, private equity, and so on and so forth. So it pretty much touches every one of us and touches every industry and segment that we probably, know of. And if I were to actually compare the automotive segment, which is another very, very large segment that, all of us touch and feel in our daily lives, that actually holds about, in terms of total asset base, that's about $4.5 trillion, and this was a 2024 stat. So if you just compare that with banking, just the amount of assets that banks hold is huge. Now, what are we dealing with in banking? While this is the lay of the land, what are we dealing with? What's the sort of, what's the sort of demography that we have, right? As I said, multiple generations of people that are looking at banking and the banking sector, whether it is the baby boomers, the silent generation, which is probably the 80-pluses who are, very, very patient, can go talk to a banker, wait for a day, for a response, and don't have problems with that. But they'd love to talk to somebody. The Gen X, of course, which is all of us, and this is, from my own generation, I can talk about that. Very skeptical. We're always, watching out to where to invest and how money is going to double and so on and so forth. And of course, the Gen Zs, the millennials, and the Gen Alpha, and each of them has a very, very characteristic trait, as you can see. And as banking and the financial services evolves, it's really about how are we able to cater to each one of these communities and what is it that we need to do at the back end. I don't think, maybe 3/4 of this room is not going to be willing to actually go to a bank and open a bank account, right? You are so much on Facebook, and if you can actually, or Amazon, or whatever it is, one of these, the newer channels, and you would love to probably open a bank account through any of these channels, right? And not going to a bank. I think I've heard somebody say, I'd rather go to a dentist than go to a bank, and that's how it is. But that's a challenge for all of us, right? And every time I think, he talked about retirement, and every time folks like me think of retirement, we realize there's some super interesting problems for us to solve, and we actually come right back. So this is the expectation, and I think it continues to evolve, right? The watchwords for all of us, as we kind of looking at improving that experience, is really faster, cheaper, better. What is the next generation really looking for? As you can see, instant gratification. So it's real-time everything that you'd probably like to look at. Real-time, your points getting credited to your card, real-time using those points, or anything else. So social and sustainable, sustainable and social responsibility. Y'all, I think, are a lot more savvy than our generation, right? I mean, we never thought about this. And today we talk about this not just in terms of, carbon emissions for our buildings and things like that, but we actually talk about this for code in terms of, how well have you written code? How many microservices do you have? What's the optimal number of microservices that you need to have in a piece of code that has been generated, for instance? Or can you shift that left, right? So it's not really after code development, but can you move that to an architecture stage where you're actually able to look at, carbon emissions, perhaps? But all I'm trying to say is it's a very, very, tech-savvy audience, an audience that feels very responsible for society that we're dealing with. So they do look at this aspect, right? The next one is transparency and trust. You'd like to know what's happening to the money that you've put in a bank. It's not enough for us to say, okay, we go and make the investments on your behalf, and then you just see, how your money is growing. And I think that's a challenge. That's where, you'd probably like to go to an Upstocks or Zerodha or somebody else, and then it puts tremendous pressure on the banking sector to say, what is it that we can do to provide a lot more of that trust and transparency for customers? Contextual engagement, I'll talk a little about that, in the slides to follow, where, it's not just about all the data that we're dealing with. Banks today have to understand context, and I'll come to that in a bit, as I said, and financial wellness, right, both for the bank and for yourselves. So what is, this destination of next generation banking? You saw all the problems that we have to deal with, and how is the next gen technology really helping us as we go through this exercise? Sorry, I'm just clicking a little too fast, I guess. Okay. What to expect? We spoke about data. Data, I think, is by far going to be the most important thing. And as you can see, one, not just for enabling faster insights, where as I said, the trust and transparency to really know what's happening, for us to know the customers a lot better. We talk a lot about data democratization in our organizations, in terms of should it come to a central data lake or warehouse that we have, or should each product have its own? How do we democratize data at a product level so that we're able to provide much faster insights to customers? And of course, agile decision making. And agile is such a huge topic. I mean, I'd feel, talking in front of a gentleman who's written books on agile, but I'll try my little bit. When I talk in an organizational context, it's really about, and I think it's very important, and you should be very mindful about the faster that I spoke about earlier on. It could be CI/CD. It could be really thinking about multiple releases that you can have in a day. It's also about things like first-time right architectures that you need to focus on, because those are very, very important as you're developing a product. It's not really the end product. I think it's really about how are we able to get to that end product. which I think is really important. Infrastructure on demand. I saw a number of booths which I thought were very relevant, and I was telling my team that they should have these conversations with, Google Cloud, Atlassian, and a number of people that were there. But really, it's thinking about infrastructure on demand, looking at data as a service, and this is more internal to the organization in terms of how the rest are actually using that data. It's about managing a lot of test data. It's about automating a lot of testing that you have, maybe creating, when I heard about this, the power failure that happened recently in Heathrow, right? And a lot of systems just went down. We realized that even the 6 nines were probably not good enough in terms of resilience and reliability. And we have to think of better backup options where you're able to provide customer services and those are not impacted. So I think, each one of these is a huge problem to solve for. And they'll be continuously evolving, right? So it's like this treadmill that you're on. You believe that you've reached a certain destination and a certain goal, and then you realize there's still a lot more for you to kind of, go off and do. So you're back onto the treadmill. And that's what happens as we are in these ever-evolving markets, right? So, well, we talk about bridging the gap between business users and data teams. I think it continues. I mean, the gap continues because the expectations are so fast changing across teams. I mean, being in a bank, we never thought about CI/CD at one point in time. We never thought about multiple releases. We always thought about large cumulative releases that we do once a quarter. And those releases at some point became so large and so difficult to manage that we, went back to the drawing board and said, that's not the way. Look at an Amazon, look at a Google. They're probably releasing n number of times a day or, a week or whatever it is. And we actually need to get a lot more nimble to get to that point. So as I said, it's really about, decision-making on the go, which is the way forward. And it's for guys like ourselves to learn. The next one, I think, is really important. I've always talked about being context aware. So if you're having a problem and you call your bank, and it could be any of these situations, a customer is looking for, say, a tax statement, and you call your bank. And the bank, actually comes back with giving you maybe account details, asking you a ton of questions, but that's not what you want at that point in time. A customer could be, in a store and there's a transaction decline. You call your bank. And again, you don't want to go through that entire rigmarole where the bank is actually, starting with your PIN and passwords and all of that, of course, but then, going off into account statements and so on. Somebody's lost a job. What they'd like to know, really, is do you have enough money to kind of, for the next couple of months? So what do I mean by us being a lot more context aware? It's really about, can I store context if I know, what people are doing, and when they call me, am I able to answer those questions which are right, and apt for the situation? So what does this entail for us to do, right? We have to work and continue to work on developing our data strategy, our AI strategy, continue to modernize a lot of our systems so that we're able to personalize a lot for customers. Because that, to me, is the most important thing, and that's what is the expectation, right? And for banks, of course, there are a ton of other things in terms of, touchless transactions, a lot more business insights that we'd like to provide. But I think that's for another day and another conversation. How are we getting better with tech, and what are the questions, that each one, that we are looking at? So this is the sort of complexity that we as a bank also look at. So if you see there is, in the center is all about next-gen experiences, but then there are a ton of things around: session, experience, channel, whether it is in-store, online, whatever that is, in-app, a lot around analytics. And each of them has more details in terms of what else we need to look at. And you can double down on each one of them in terms of what do you do, right? Whether it is a simple thing like ID and auth. And I'll just tell you the complexity in terms of, so if you have a cyber, a Black Friday, Cyber Monday time, for instance, the network is actually hit by fraudsters probably 1 million times. And so it's not just about our teams, understanding that the network's hit, but really drawing out anti-patterns so that we are, or risk and fraud modeling, so that we're able to beat those fraudsters, right? So that's the sort of complexity that I think tech has to deal with. And all of these are, a number of other areas that we constantly look at. But the one thing for you to zoom in on is the mobile first. And many of us even like to go through our banking applications on mobile because that is the most personalized device for all of us. So, well, I'd end off with, I see that time's up, but I'll end off with this, right? Saying these are all the areas that we're looking at, whether it is, the super apps that we talk about today. There's a lot that we ourselves are doing around quantum research and next-gen encryption. We're looking at things like homomorphic encryption for fraud, a lot around machine learning for agentic AI and things like that, because these are questions that executives always get asked in terms of, as I said, are the next generation BPOs, or the guys that answer your phones, going to be agentic AI agents, or should they actually be a human on the other side? Right? So these are, definitely questions that we are trying to solve for as a bank, and I look forward to all of you having some amazing conversations over the next couple of days to actually help us with the how to get to this point. So thank you, and a happy next few days.
Srisha or Vodaganti, everybody. Always so excited to see how these visionary organizations with such leaders driving change and evolution in their industries. Very fascinating to me, and it helps me as a technologist connect the technology that I'm delivering to the value that I'm creating out in the world. So I always appreciate these, and we're going to see more of this. To build on our topic of AI, we have Bharath Kumar, who's going to talk about the intersection of code and AI. And Bharath is from Zoho, another industry-leading organization that is driving change and innovation. I cannot wait for this keynote. Everybody, please welcome to the stage, Bharath.
Good morning, audio check, am I audible? Yeah. I'm Bharat from Chennai. Whenever I start my keynotes presentations, especially while in Bangalore, I talk about CSK and IPL. This time the joke's on me, so I'll refrain from doing that. But I'll tell something that I really mean. To see the auditorium full at 8:30, I had tears in my eyes, the level of commitment that you have. I'll repay the commitment by spending the next 14 minutes and 30 seconds by doing something that is value adding to you. We'll get started with that. My my session is just two major things. I am aware that Zoho is not as popular or as well known as some of the large brands out there. So I'll just spend 2-3 minutes on who Zoho is, not marketing fluff, but just to tell you who is this guy and why is this guy speaking these things, to put in some context. So the first 2-3 minutes, and the next 10 minutes on what have we learned as a technology service provider. After giving the context of who we are, what have we learned over time? So that's all I'm going to talk about. If time permits, I'll just show you one quick application demo, but let's see where we go. About Zoho, just show of hands, how many of you have heard of Zoho? Okay, nice. Thank you so much. Almost 80%. The number keeps increasing. Thanks for that. This is the marketing fluff slide. Been here for so many years, 100 million customers, 1 billion in revenue. I'll skip that. I'll come to the engineering part of it. Let's play this game. The slide here has 2 truths and 1 lie. Let's see if you can identify which one is a lie. Zoho is a technology company, it's a software company, it runs 60 plus applications. Zoho runs its own data centers. Statement number 1. Zoho, false, okay. Zoho has its own browser. Statement number 2. Zoho has launched a OS for laptops. Statement number 3. So how many of you think 1 is false? Okay, how many think 2 is false? Okay, 30%. How many of you think 3 is wrong? Okay, intelligent Bangalore audience, 3 is wrong. Zoho runs its own data centers. For a technology company, for a product-based company, running its own data centers across the globe in 14 different places. Again, I'm just putting this clearly from an engineering point of view that the level of investment that we do, we are not just selling products on top of some other cloud hosting service provider. We want to understand, or we want to be completely in charge of everything that will impact our user experience, right from a data center or a browser, anything that impacts a user's experience. When they come to us, we don't want to tell them that, hey, it works in my laptop, or hey, this is a problem with your cloud hosting service provider, go talk to them. We want to be in complete control of everything that will impact our user experience. What that has meant is, we have invested a lot in R&D. We are a deeply product engineering focused organization. The only lie is OS, but next year maybe it won't be a lie, because we are also working on something called Surya OS, which is going to be our own OS for laptops. So that's the scope of what we are playing. This is still work in progress, but next year we should have it. Now, with this context, a company that's been here for so many years, deep investment in technology, right from data center, browser, and everything included, including a WhatsApp equivalent called Aratai that is work in progress. What have we learned engineering-wise and predominantly AI aspect? What are some of the learnings that we got over time? We will split this into two. Even us as a technology company, we will categorize this learning into two, AD and BC. In our language, we call it, there was a big CapEx era where there was a lot of focus on how many GPUs, what's your processing capability, how many billion parameters. That was one side. Then is the AD era after DeepSeek. One fine day when DeepSeek announced that this is what I am doing from my garage, the whole world started looking at AI in a very different point of view. So I'll start from there. One of our important learnings is, it is not just going to be big tech that will own AI. AI will be obviously driven by a lot by the big tech organizations, because it needed a lot of investment. This is 3-month-old data, more than 250 billion in AI infrastructure investments. But what we are realizing is, everybody will have their own AI play. Or if you have to slightly put it in a different context from a business point of view, there is no excuse for anybody, be it a startup, SMB, large organization, be it a developer, a marketer, a legal professional. There is no excuse for anybody now to say that I didn't have the right tools to do it. There are tools at your disposal. Predominantly, it would be coming from the stables of large organizations, but you will see a lot of other players, a long tail of different service providers, different product organizations that will help organizations adopt AI. So it's not just going to be big tech, you will see a lot of organizations. The most important game changer is reasoning is now available for all. So like how Venkat touched upon in the morning session, the first session, it is not just getting the answer, it is understanding where the answer comes from. Then deciding whether this is right for me or not. Should I consider it or not? That is an important game changer from an AA point of view. AA features will be table stakes. In whatever product that you use, it could be a CRM, it could be a PowerPoint maker that you have, any tool that you use, AA features will start to become table stakes and will not be differentiators. We are seeing this as technology service providers, that some of the things that we talk about with enterprises now are not features. What are we talking? I'll touch upon them as I go. If I step back and understand where is AI actually helping anybody, it is coming down to two major things. One, it is speed, or it is quality. And if things go well, both. And I'm not, when I say speed, I'm not talking about developer productivity and that the pace of development. But for any user, let's say, I'll take a non-technical user also. Let's say I take a marketer. A marketer wants to write something. AI is helping that person write better, write faster, gives the first level of content that helps them create something. Ideate, discuss, throw ideas and evaluate whether my thought process is correct or not, and then come up with a rough draft. So the speed of going to a prototype, I would put it like that, has increased tremendously after AI. So that's the first step, the speed. Second is quality. Yes, I'm a marketer. Let's say I'm creating some content, but is it the best possible content? Is it relevant to my audience? How do I ensure that AI tells me that it is relevant to my audience? Let's say from the language point of view, from the flow point of view, from the examples point of view, from bringing diverse perspectives point of view, AI will help. So we are, from a technology service provider point of view also, what we are thinking of is, whenever we introduce any capability, anything to do with AI in our products, we are thinking, what is the end benefit for the user? It is not just having AI as a tick mark anymore, but is it improving my user's pace at which he can get things done? Or is it improving my user's quality of work, even quality of life? Can she finish this easier, faster, so that she can focus on other things that demands her attention? So that's the approach we are taking when we roll out features as a service provider. This is the most important learning for us. Value is in context. A previous speaker nicely touched upon this point, where what is possible with AI is anyway becoming standard across different tools. How am I applying this in my context is going to differentiate a winner versus someone who's just going to perform in an average way. And from a learning point of view also, I'm sure like in malls, in a lot of public places, we see nowadays that there is a parking slot. You are supposed to park there. You will pay for the parking, but there will be a board that says parking at owner's risk. I'm like, bro, I'm paying you money and you're still saying parking at owner's risk, which is what AI is also doing. I will give you all of these things. Venkat again touched upon some of nice examples, including the airline examples in the morning, where I am using your service, but you're telling me that I'm not reliable. Then what happens is, where do I apply it? Where is the context for me to use this? How much deeply, widely am I going to apply this is in the hands of the user like us. So again, that is where the context is going to become very important. There'll be multiple tools for anything. Like now my thought experiment is, whenever, let's say for these slide decks, I was just figuring out, is there an AI way of doing these things better? I asked one AI tool, what is the best other AI alternative options that are available, and it suggested something called a napkin.ai, which is so beautiful. It took me 5 minutes to understand. I put 5 lines and it converted it as a nice infographic and shared it back with me. So tools, capabilities will be available. Our intelligence, our awareness of the context is going to become much more important. When this is happening, customers are not going to pay a huge sum for AI, which is the ground reality. Customers are willing to pay for AI, there is no doubt about it. But when the initial hype was happening, when maybe last year when we were talking, there was so much hype and expectation around, is AI going to replace developers? Is AI going to replace humans and all that? That time, the level of the willingness to pay, or how deep I'm going to invest, purely from a customer point of view for tech organizations, tech capabilities, was very different. Now it is plateaued. It is more realistic. Okay, what is the value I am getting from this? Why should I invest in this tool at a certain cost? The benefits are, yes, speed and quality, but how much should I pay to get this speed and quality? Is this incremental addition in my cost worth the incremental benefit that I'm getting either from speed or quality? Is the conversations that we are seeing. In that context, what we are also learning is right-sizing the models. We don't need to have large models for every need. Zoho, we offer our own LLMs for our user needs. So in a lot of our applications, you will see that you can either bring your own key and integrate with, let's say, an OpenAI and get things done, or you can use Zoho's own AI for certain operations. But what we have learned is over time, to reduce the cost, to make it specific, and also there is the sustainability angle. How can we right-size the models? Do we need LLMs for every need? For example, if there is a vendor-specific invoice, I know there is a certain pattern, this vendor is going to send me invoice a certain way every time, I can live with a simple machine learning model, understand the template, figure out the exceptions, and throw error to the user whenever required. For certain use cases, let's say there are receipts for different types. Let's say an employee submits receipts for different expenses. Could be travel, could be food, could be some gift for the client, etc. So that is slightly evolved. You don't need a large language model, but models with basic levels, even a 3-4 billion parameter models should be able to satisfy those expectations or those needs. Large language models are also needed, but for specific use cases. If you want to go through, let's say, a contract, let's say you run an organization which has hundreds, thousands of contracts, and you want your AI system to go through that and tell you that, hey, These are some clauses that you should be aware of. These are some negotiation timelines that are coming up in the next 2 months. These are some exceptions that are redlined that you should be aware of, etc. So there maybe you would need large language models. Obviously, when from a developer point of view, the tools that we use for development, that is a whole different game. But from our learning, right sizing the model is helping the users, is helping us as well. From enterprise point of view, what we have learned is conversations are all centered around privacy, trust, and compliance. When we talk about AI capabilities, when we say that, hey, our CRM can do this, it can tell you the right time to contact, it can figure out that email for you, etc. The question that is coming back is not on how can I write this email better? Because I think the users are starting to sort of put that thought process that AI will give me a prototype. It can be content, it can be code, it can be anything that I'm asking from AI. Still, we are in a stage where I have to manually verify, which is definitely a reduction in productivity because you are introducing a manual angle there. But the question is again on how secure is your environment? Can I trust your service? Will my data be safe? What are the compliance protocols that you have? There was one user who, when in a conversation recently, asked me, how do you delete the data that you trained in your LLM? I didn't have a specific answer to that. So the types of questions that we are getting are all not on the features and capabilities, but more on privacy, trust, and compliance. And again, as developers, I think this and the context part is what I would take away, that yes, I will understand AI, I will deploy AI, I will use AI, but I will put it in the right context for my user. I will keep the compliance trust angle at the top so that the users get the confidence to adopt this more and more. I'll quickly skip through this. So one of the applications that I wanted to show was one of our low-code platforms called Zoho Creator. So Zoho offers 60 applications in all. This is an application which is a low-code platform to build applications where through AI, we are able to generate applications for users. I'll leave the presentation with you where you can look at it, where you can prompt the system, or you can even upload your BRD, or you can upload your flowchart, or you can upload your handwriting notes, and you will see the system generate applications for you. And abstraction is the value add, where you are not worried about where is this hosted, or how do I get it on mobile, what are the privacy security policies, etc. Because all of that is taken care by the low-code platform, while the application development process, the code generation process happens through AI. And when both of this is married, it's a superpower for the users. I'll skip this demo, but I'll finish with this final takeaway. What interesting aspect that is happening now is we have seen multiple industries being impacted, like how I am impacted with this timeout sign now, because of technology. And what is interesting is, let's say in manufacturing, let's say in weaving, in traditional weaving, etc., someone external came and disrupted the system. Suddenly there was industrialization, there was machines that were disrupting the system. We software developers are so good that we are disrupting our own life through AI, right? Now, as Venkat put it, that's what the summary I had as well. If we are able to understand the context, if we can add value more, we can use this as an advantage for ourselves and stay ahead of the curve. That's my humble submission. Thanks for your time.
Bharath Kumar, everybody. Bharath Kumar, everybody. Yes. So we have seen how Sarisha is leading with empathy and using technology to benefit humanity. We have seen how Zoho, who leads in so many sectors, is leveraging these new technologies and sharing their learnings with us. And of course, we had our inspiring opening keynote from Dr. Venkat Subramaniam about AI and how to find that value. But I have a question for the room right now. How many people want to double down on their desire to take charge with AI and put us in the driver's seat to use this as a tool to benefit our organizations, ourselves, and all of humanity? Yes. And how many of you have a very clear idea of how to do that? I don't see a single hand. Oh, right there, right there. And this is why I'm so excited for our final opening keynote, friends. We have Kavitha Viswanath, and she is going to be sharing with us in her keynote, Beyond Code, the essential skills for future tech leaders. This, my friends, is where the rubber meets the road. So our final speaker is here with Toast, and she's going to be sharing with us how to navigate this tech landscape and be leaders in our organizations, in our teams, and in our own lives. Please join me in welcoming to the stage Kavita Viswanath.
Thank you. Hello, good morning. Wow, the packed room makes me nervous, but I'm so honored and excited to be here and speak at Gids. By the way, for those of you sitting here, you do not know, this hall is packed. I was roaming from hall A, B, C, trying to find a seat, and then someone said, hey, I'll get you the back door entry, and got me right here. So that's how full the conference is. So thank you, Gids, for setting this up. And what amazing energy and excitement this morning. Great keynotes by Venkat, Sirisha, and Bharat as well. It's a little bit like trying to come up on stage after Elvis has performed. So bear with me. I'll try my best to keep you guys engaged. I'm Kavita Viswanath, Senior Vice President and India Country Head for Toast. How many of you have heard of the company Toast before today? Okay, it was a little bit like me before I joined them. I'll take a minute to tell you what we do. Toast is one of the leading in-store commerce platform. We have a SaaS platform that offers products to restaurants, cafes, retailers. We manage everything from front of the house to back of the house. So starting from booking a table, managing your guest information, doing payments, POS, back of the house, kitchen management, P&L, payroll, inventory, recipe costing, all of the things that make a restaurant, cafe, and a retailer function really well so that they can focus on what they do, which is really cook and serve guests like ourselves. So amazing domain to be in, and there's a ton of sophistication involved in all of this. Oops. Okay. I'm going to change gears a little bit. I think we are kind of covering the spectrum here, starting from AI, what beautiful code looks like, what not so good code looks like, to Sirisha coming and talking about banking and the transformation that we see there. What I'm going to touch upon is the essential skills required for future tech leaders in an age where we are all getting impacted by digital disruption. In the early days of my career, cloud was a big disruptor, right? Cloud came in, but it gave us all enough time to think about what kind of disruption this is going to bring in. Organizations, enterprises took some time to adopt cloud, really figure out whether it's going to save money for us or not, and it gave us time to sort of settle in with that. But what's happening today is there is disruption happening every day. Each day you wake up, there is a new model out there, especially in AI, and of course you cannot walk out of a conference without talking about AI, okay? It's like something you have to do if you're in the technology world. So with so much disruption happening around you, how do you evolve as a tech leader? It starts with really future-proofing your fundamentals. Looking at tech, which is existing in the world today, to what's coming up in the horizon. How do you anticipate the next evolution that cloud brings in? We saw edge happening, we saw decentralization happening. Of course, embracing AI's potential, looking at use cases that are way beyond what's happening currently, like how can you embed a use case for in your product roadmap? How can you think of enhancing productivity for not just your developers, but your non-technical users as well? And in an age where there's so much code being written, being generated, there's obviously threats to that. There are smarter people who are also figuring out how to hack into this code, how to break into systems and lose millions of dollars for businesses. So how do you integrate security as an evolving discipline when you're thinking about your vision for tech? And most importantly, cultivate a growth mindset through active ecosystem engagement, which is really about being aware of what's happening in your domain, being aware of what's happening in the industry, the market shifts that are happening. I mean, the recent news over the past couple of weeks is tariffs, right? It's shifted so much that's happening in the industry and market. And think of it this way. You're a technical leader in one of the companies that's expected to ship stuff outside of China, or let's say you're impacted because a lot of your supply chain is sitting in China or any of the other countries that are impacted with tariffs, how do you suddenly shift and make sure that your business is not impacted significantly, right? So this is what it takes to have an active ecosystem engagement when you think about global awareness and cultivating a growth mindset. How do you think beyond technology and develop a holistic view by aligning business to it? It starts with understanding your user needs and the customer journeys. So one of the things that's amazing about Toast is one of our values is customer focus. Now what does it mean? It means that how do you bring customer centricity in the conversations that you're having or in the work that you're doing every day? And one of the beautiful things that we do is for roles or functions that are not talking or interacting with customers on a day-to-day basis, we try and give or create opportunities where you go on listening tours or customer interactions and capture feedback from the customer. I was on one such listening tour. By the way, one of the perks of working at Toast is your customers are restaurants and cafes, okay? So you go have a nice meal, have a nice drink, and have a pleasant conversation about how the product is, what kind of shifts they are seeing in the market, right? So I was in one such customer conversation, and there was this wine sommelier. A wine sommelier is somebody who understands everything about wines, who gives you suggestions on what wine to pick, how do you pair it with the right kind of food, basis what you'd like, etc., etc. This wine sommelier is telling us, I wish I had a system that tells me at real time that my top selling wine is actually running low on stock and I need to stop selling it and start pushing my other second and third best selling wines, okay? Now remember, this is a wine sommelier whose job itself is knowledge intensive because there's tons of stuff to learn and know about wines. And here he comes and tells us that I wish technology can help me and AI can help me with this, right? So do not underestimate the immense knowledge that your customers have about their business that they share with you in some of these conversations that can actually work for you and give you an edge over your competitors. So I think understanding user journeys and being a part of it is such an important learning curve. Then comes staying informed about regulatory compliance and privacy trends. Now, we're all building systems and products to serve global customers, right? But at the same time, we know that none of these things are uniform. Every country looks at privacy laws, looks at compliance and regulatory in a completely different lens. So how do you build a product or a system that serves everyone? I think one of the fundamental things that we need to be aware of is how do you stay on top of all of these changes, or at a high level understand what are the nuances or changes you need to bake into your technical vision when you're building a product that's more global in nature. And of course, design with flexibility and that evolves with future technologies. Okay, I couldn't think of any other GIF, so I thought, I'll get some smiles in the room. Do not go into the rabbit hole of what Trump said this morning, so bringing you back here. But I think the most fundamental thing to me, which is central of all of this, is communication, which is a superpower. But I'll tell you that it's a superpower that none of us are leveraging right. Being able to articulate your thoughts well, weaving a story around what you want to present in your technical committee or on why a technical investment is required, being able to connect and communicate to your stakeholders who are non-technical folks on the importance of something, doing it with empathy, doing it with authenticity, and bringing the right emotional intelligence to be able to anticipate the emotions, the reactions, the conflicts that might emerge right after this is such an important part of being a technical leader or building that muscle as you grow up your career and look at a changing world that's already being disrupted. I think to me this cross-functional collaboration is super important, and I'll tell you that this is something that I've seen the best of the technical folks struggle with, and I'm sure a lot of you here do a ton of interviews, and this is something that becomes a differentiator when we think about technical leadership and what kind of leaders we need for our organization. At the center of leadership is self-awareness, adaptability, and continuous learning. we need to start thinking about taking ownership that's beyond code, look at it strategically and take a long-term vision. Create an environment that fosters innovation within your team through mentorship and other tools that your organization provides. Prioritize continuous learning and adaptability, and be open-minded and embrace new technology. I was watching a video where there was a C-level executive who was very proudly sitting in a conference and talking about how their organization went all in on AI and reaping the benefits of it. And one of the questions the interviewer asked him is, what do you think surprised you the most? And the exec said, the resistance and the reluctance I saw within my organization to actually adapt AI. By the way, this does not surprise me. I think, although all of us have heard and read so much about AI, there is still, I think, something holding us back from going full hog with it. And rightfully so, there are pros and cons to it. But being in a position where you're not open-minded to say, hey, I'm going to do this to adapt to AI and the other new tech that's happening here, would mean that you're already setting your career back and taking a step back from where your peers and your competitors are. Okay, I'll leave you with some final thoughts. I already saw the timer go up. And I'm sure whatever I'm speaking here today is not new to a lot of you. But if in these 10 minutes I'm able to trigger any thoughts and have you guys take away one or two things from this presentation, I think that's my 10 minutes worth of time this morning. I'll say act as strategic leaders, not as implementers, is such an important part of your role because people, business users, the stakeholders are looking up to this community to guide in the world of disruption. Communicate with clarity to your teams and your stakeholders and simplify that communication. Remember empathy and emotional intelligence. Design with your customers in mind. This is an important part of how do you differentiate yourself in the industry. And build a future-ready, resilient development culture. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Kavita. And I want to thank all of our presenters this morning, because not only do our sponsors make this event possible for all of us to be here, but they go beyond to share their insights, share their wisdom, to make us all better prepared to navigate this space. How about one more round of applause for all of our sponsors, particularly Toast, Zoho, and Lloyd's. And as we go into the day, I want to hand everything back to our very wonderful MC of the main hall all this week, Miss Kate.
Thank you so much for that, Michael. We are now going to take a short coffee break. Refreshments are being served in the dining area, and the next session is going to start at 11 a.m. sharp. Please be back to your chosen hall on time. While stretching your legs, don't forget, post your summit highlights using the hashtags #Gids and #DeveloperSummit. And if you have a minute, stop at the registration desk, the registration help desk to record a quick bite about your Gids experience. We'd love to hear your thoughts. You'll find full contest details on page 3 of your printed guide. Enjoy. See you at 11 a.m.